We come now to the culmination of the gradual training. And I will read a description of this from the middle length discourses. It's many, many, many times in the suttas. And I'm just picking Majjhima Nikaya, middle length discourses, Sutta 51. And you'll hear, we're jumping into the middle of the sutta, where all of the aspects of the gradual training that we've already described and discussed have been fleshed out. And there's a little bit of a recap. You'll hear many parts of the gradual training at the beginning of this quote. And I'm reading a translation by Bhante Sujato. He's an Australian monk. And I enjoy reading his translations because he's put the suttas often in gender neutral terms. So the they is the practitioner, the meditator. When they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, one part of the gradual training, this noble contentment, another part, this noble sense restraint, another part, and this noble mindfulness and situational awareness, another part. They frequent a secluded lodging, a wilderness, the root of a tree, a hill, a ravine, a mountain cave, a charnel ground, Canmore Theravada Buddhist Community Monastery. It's not in there. A forest, the open air, a heap of straw. After the meal, they return from alms round, sit down cross-legged, set their bodies straight, and establish mindfulness in front of them. They're getting ready to meditate. Giving up covetousness for the world, they meditate with a heart rid of covetousness, cleansing the mind of covetousness. Giving up ill will, they meditate with a mind rid of ill will, full of compassion for all living beings, cleansing the mind of ill will and malevolence. Giving up dullness and drowsiness, they meditate with a mind full of dullness and drowsiness, perceiving light, mindful and aware, cleansing the mind of dullness and drowsiness. Giving up restlessness and remorse, they meditate without restlessness, their mind peaceful inside, cleansing the mind of restlessness and remorse, cleansing the mind of restlessness and remorse. Giving up doubt, they meditate having gone beyond doubt, not undecided about skillful qualities, cleansing the mind of doubt. They give up these 5 hindrances, corruptions of the heart that weaken wisdom. Then, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, they enter and remain in the first jhana, the first absorption, which has the rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. As the placing of the mind and keeping it connected are stilled, they enter and remain in the second jhana, second absorption, which has the rapture and bliss born of immersion, born of samadhi, with internal clarity and mind at one, without placing the mind and keeping it connected. And with the fading away of rapture, they enter and remain in the third absorption, where they meditate with equanimity, mindful and aware, personally experiencing the bliss of which the noble ones declare, equanimous and mindful, one meditates in bliss. Giving up pleasure and pain, and ending former happiness and sadness, they enter and remain in the fourth absorption, without pleasure or pain, with equanimity and mindfulness. And then, after describing these 4 states of deep meditation, the first absorption, first jhana, second absorption, second jhana, third absorption, third jhana, fourth absorption, fourth jhana. The sutta goes on to describe at that time what the mind has become like, what the experience is. When their mind has become immersed in samadhi like this, it becomes purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable. The mind becomes very, very powerful. And the mindfulness is purified, and it has a penetrative quality. And this is when then the sutta goes on to describe the kinds of insights that this person experiences. And they're the same insights that the Buddha had the night of his awakening. You have the power in the mind to have knowledges of your past lives, have knowledges of aspects of karma, see the causality and the non-self nature of the cosmos, and fully penetrate, experience, understand the Four Noble Truths, and experience freedom, experience awakening. So this is the culmination of the path. And in the Eightfold Noble Path, this is Sama Samadhi. Sometimes gets translated as right concentration. We have these two words describing this aspect of the gradual training. We have the word jhana and we have the word samadhi. I'll just talk about them for a minute. But before I go on, what I would like to say, just for clarity and as a caveat, that I'm speaking from my own understanding, from my studying and reading and listening to teachers that I trust, like Ajahn Brahm, Ajahn Brahmali, Ajahn Sujato, Ajahn Punadamo, and my own meditation teacher, Beth Upton, and from my own practice and the practice of other people that I have the privilege and honor of knowing their aspects of their practice. So that being said, talking about these two words, jhana and samadhi, these are both Pali words, and they're both descriptions of meditation. Samadhi, you can break it apart. There actually are different ways to break it apart, but the one that makes the most sense to me is to have sam, the beginning of the word, which would mean together, and the long a, which would mean towards, and d, which is like support, place. So it's this idea of the mind being settled and just supported and with the object of the samadhi. This word samadhi, often I said before, can get an older translation is the word concentration, and many modern teachers reject that translation because they feel like it has a quality, two things. I think a quality of effort and force, and another quality of like a bit of a narrowing and a sort of a laser kind of quality, and that is not actually descriptive of samadhi. Samadhi is when the mind is very, very still, very, very settled, collected, but it's vast and expansive. Not zzz, but So Ajahn Brahm really loves to translate samadhi as stillness. Ajahn Punadamo really likes to translate samadhi as collected. And those are both more descriptive of this aspect of the path. And Ajahn Sujato, Bhante Sujato, often has been translating it as immersion. So this idea of just, being almost like think of being in water. You just it's surround sound. The mind is immersed. Yeah, the word jhana, Bhikkhu Bodhi leaves untranslated. Bhante Sujato translates as absorption. It is quite similar to this immersion quality. So why these two words, samadhi and jhana? I will say jhana, this is the Pali word. The Sanskrit word is jhana, and in Chinese it's chan, and everyone will recognize this. In Japanese, it's Zen. So when we talk about Zen Buddhism, we're talking about jhana Buddhism. And really important to know, I think, is that jhana, it's a noun, but it comes from jayati, the verb. And that verb always is being translated as to meditate. So every time you're reading and every time you hear readings from the Buddha's discourses, when it talks about meditate, it's talking about go do jhana. Juneti is another version of that verb. And just to underscore the incredible importance of jhana, of samadhi, in the Buddha's teaching, if you do a word search on Sutta Central for jhana, you get 335 hits, and for samadhi you get 364. And jhana, there's many other versions of this word, so that this isn't even completely comprehensive at all. It's just all over the Buddha's suttas. Very, very important part of the path. And the eighth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path is Sama Samadhi. And there are times in the suttas where the Buddha, is analyzing the Eightfold Noble Path and breaking it down and describing each aspect, like we did at the beginning of our time together here today. Those definitions are all straight from the Pali Canon. So there are times that the Buddha explicitly defines Sama Samadhi, right Samadhi, as the four jhanas. One example, one place it's very explicit is in the connected discourses, the Samyutta Nikaya 45, Sutta 8, where it's an analysis of the Eightfold Noble Path. So all of that being said, what I think is useful, again, my own opinions, but what I think is useful to talk about, I would like to have like 5 takeaways about samadhi for us today. And the first one, this comes from Ajahn Punadamo. I think it's extremely useful, and it's a framework that I think makes it helpful and possible to talk about samadhi. Is he proposes to think of samadhi as a continuum from states of mind where the mind is definitely becoming more still and more settled and different than the mind is, in regular life or in a meditation session where it's fairly distracted. From that all the way to the most refined states that we didn't even read about today, beyond fourth jhana. So Ajahn Punadamo suggests thinking of it as this continuum. And I think that's very useful. And I think there's evidence of that in the suttas. I'll read a sutta later that I think supports that. And I think it makes it possible to speak about this process of meditation. Secondly, I think it's very descriptive and helpful to think of samadhi as a process of the mind purifying and simplifying. Both these things are happening as we are, progressing along this continuum of going into deeper states of the mind being still and collected and pure, and the attention. So the mind is purifying. It's purifying of the 5 hindrances. That's exactly the description that was given in the middle-length discourse excerpt that I read. The mind is being purified of the 5 hindrances, and the mind everything is simplifying. The regular life that we live in is very diverse, and the mind is used to diversity. And when you begin the process of training the mind, you go through a little bit of withdrawal. You are what's that called when you get off drugs? You're getting off the drug of diversity, and our culture is moving ever more quickly into the world of diversity. And this is what the mind, this is a strong tendency in the mind towards proliferation. There's a wonderful Pali word, papancha. You can watch this in your life. We will make things more complicated than they are constantly, everywhere. And we come up with stories and, just having lived in a monastery now, I've just experienced this so much. Someone doesn't come to a meeting or someone comes late, and then there's all these stories. And we have no idea. We haven't asked this person, or, there's all this talk about what are we going to do about such and such. And then you spend hours talking about something that never even happens. It's amazing. It's amazing to watch. So meditation and this process of the mind purifying and simplifying is going the absolute other direction. And you realize that this is the skill that you are developing as you have this beautiful relationship with your meditation object, and you spend time with it, and then the mind wanders off, and then, oh, no, we're going to just hang out with our friend, the meditation object right now. You are training your mind to enjoy this unification, this simplicity, this oneness. The third takeaway is that it's, again, very useful to think of samadhi, and then, so you've got this continuum of samadhi, and then jhana is at one point on this continuum where there's an actual shift in the quality of the consciousness. But it's very useful to think of this as a natural state. This is not, well, some people would call it climbing a mountain, but this is not like attaining something or getting somewhere. This is actually this purification and simplification. This is a dropping things, things being cleared away, and the mind going to a much more natural state. And because of this naturalness of it, it's the mind rests, the mind's nourished. It's very beautiful. It's a natural state. I can read a sutta that reinforces this. And I won't read the whole sutta because it's formulaic, and you just need a couple of the formulas to realize, oh, this is clear. This is just, it's the mind. When we clear things away, the mind knows how to do this, and so it's a real experience of coming home, and you find a home for the mind. So this is from the numerical discourses, the Anguttara Nikaya, and it's in the Book of Elevens, and it's Sutta number 2. Again, this is Bhante Sujato's translation. For a person endowed with virtue, consummate in virtue, there is no need for an act of will. May freedom from remorse arise in me. It's in the nature of things that freedom from remorse arises in a person endowed with virtue, consummate in virtue. For a person free from remorse, there is no need for an act of will. May joy arise in me. It's in the nature of things that joy arises in a person free from remorse. And it goes on, for a joyful person, no need for an act of will. May rapture arise in me. And etc., all the way. For a person experiencing pleasure, there is no need for an act of will. May my mind grow still. May my mind grow collected. It's in the nature of things that the mind of a person experiencing pleasure grows still. It's a natural state. The fourth takeaway is that the mind, as it's beginning to experience more and more samadhi, is all these descriptions still and collected, but that it's very vast. This is experienced differently by different people, but there's definitely like a lightness, and often there's a lot of even light in the mind, light that's perceived in the mind. And this is a progression of going away from the physical sensory world that we all like swim in, and moving more and more and more to the world of the mind. And it's magical. But it's vast and expansive and spacious. Ajahn Punadamo uses phrases like let the meditation object, he's talking about the breath specifically, but let the breath fill the mind. There's this idea of space, and let the breath fill the mind. Let the meditation object fill the mind, rather than this, honing down on. No, it's a let the meditation object fill the mind. And you probably, many of us have had these experiences, right, where the meditation object is just there, and it's filling up the space, and the attention, becomes very, very pleasurable and very beautiful. And this is why it's just this natural progression, and there doesn't need to be these acts of will. There's initially there's a training involved, and then you'll hear people talk about like the meditation is just doing itself, and this is sort of capturing these last 2 points I'm making, that it's natural, and that it's spacious and expansive, and the mind is vast. And the fifth takeaway is maybe the most useful, and that is it's very, very helpful. I personally have found it very, very helpful to think of meditation like a relationship. It's a relationship that you're developing with your meditation object, and this continuum, this progression of samadhi, how you know that is happening is not by these mystical experiences at all. I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's actually quite objective. It just the more that you, during your meditation time, the more time that you are with your meditation object, this is the mark of progress. You want to be with your meditation object as much of the meditation as possible. And the more that you're with your meditation object, the more that this natural process will be taking place. So this continuum and these descriptions of jhana, there are these 5 jhana factors, and in the translation that I read of Bhante Sujato in the middle length discourses, he's choosing to translate the 5 jhana factors with this language. So the first jhana factor is this idea of placing the mind, samadhi, together towards this support, this meditation object. So this first jhana factor is, in Pali, it's vitakka, and it's this idea of turning the mind, applying the attention to the meditation object. This is the first jhana factor. And this is present in all of our meditations. The second jhana factor, very related to the first, they come as a pair, is vichara in Pali. And Bhante Sujato is translating it as keeping it connected, keeping the mind connected, keeping the mind in relationship with the meditation object. There are beautiful similes for these 2 aspects of our meditation that strengthen and become really like perfected or complete or certainly reach a tipping point when we enter jhana, but they're there with us all the way along the journey. So the 2 similes, one is this idea of bringing the mallet or the to the gong, and this idea of placing the mind, and then vichara is keeping it connected, keeping it in relationship with the meditation object. In the simile is the gong, the sustained ring of the gong. So sometimes these vitakka and vichara can get translated as is it applied attention and then sustained attention. The other simile is very, very beautiful. It's like of an eagle soaring. So the flapping of the wings is the vitakka, the placing the mind on the meditation object, and then the eagle soaring is the vichara, is this sustained. And then and these are wonderful similes because you realize you don't want to be going, placing the mind. No, it becomes forceful and unnatural. You place the mind and then listen as the gong rings. And then when necessary, when the bird is not losing a little bit of altitude, place the mind again and then glide. Beautiful, beautiful similes, vitakka and vichara, and present in all of our meditation. And wonderful to know, this is part of this samadhi trip that we're all on. The next 2 jhana factors come as a pair, and again have some different translations. The first one is in Pali, piti, and it usually gets translated as either joy or rapture. It's a mental quality, and some of you may well have had experiences with it. It's a mental quality, but it has a physical correlate. It has a physical manifestation in the body. And that is very varied. Some people experience it as spine rushes or tickly feelings. Sometimes it can even feel like insects crawling, but there's a pleasantness to it. There's an aliveness to it. Some people experience it as a lot of heat in the body, goosebumps, any kind of like, ooh, what's that? Unique sensation. This is the beginning of this jhana factor coming online, piti. And then sukha, its pair, it's usually translated as happiness. It's really, Beth Upton, kind of took some of the mystery of this away for me when she just said, sukha really is just pleasant, very pleasant. When the meditation starts to become very, very pleasant, this is sukha coming online. And the fifth jhana factor is in all of the jhanas. And it is sort of the hallmark of samadhi. And it's this ekagata. And again, sometimes it gets translated as one-pointedness, and specifically Ajahn Punadama really rejects that translation. You can think of it, the direct translation would be eka is one and gata is gone. So that's a much better translation, gone to oneness. So it's sort of the culmination of this simplification that's happening, that you're just gone to oneness. It's just you and your meditation object. And there's a lot of connection and beauty and intimacy there. So one other thing I'll say is that the discourses themselves don't specifically use this word of access stillness, but the Abhidhamma does, and I think there are descriptions of it in the sutta, and I'll read one. So that's, I think, also very helpful if you think about there's this journey to jhana, and jhana is very distinct, and there's specific descriptions about what that mind state is like, and beforehand there's this journey, this purification, simplification journey that occurs for every meditator. And Beth Upton talks about this is the first chapter of your meditation life, and for some people it can be very, very long, and that's fine. But this is 80% of our work in meditation is this purification and this simplification of learning how to understanding the five hindrances, the way that they work in our own individual mind, and learning ways for them to become quiescent, inactive. And then the mind will have this natural state of settled collectedness. One sutta that is very useful that describes some of this process, again, it's in the numerical discourses in the Book of Threes, and it's Sutta 101. It's a really beautiful sutta, and it is actually totally a description of the gradual training that's very different. It's much more nuanced and sort of coming from a different angle. And it's called The Soil Remover, and it's talking about gold, and gold being refined and being purified and becoming more just pure gold. But the sutta is describing, and I'm now reading translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi, and the sutta is describing the meditator has had these 5 hindrances, the more coarse forms of sense desire, ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, and uncertainty. They become quite offline. They become quiescent, and yet still, I'll go on. There remains in him subtle defilements, and these are the subtle ones. And probably all of us can relate. Oh yeah, I've been there. So the coarser 5 hindrances are, it's such a beautiful feeling, right? That you're just fully content. There's no sense desire. Everything's fine. It's just way okay, and you're not resisting any aspect of your experience, and you're alive, and you're engaged, and you're certain about what you're doing. You're feeling confident. There remain in him subtle defilements, thoughts about his relations, thoughts about his country, and thoughts about his reputation. There's just still quite a lot of the self. These are descriptions of the ways that we define ourselves, especially if you think of 25 years ago in India. Who you were was totally defined by your social placement, your country, your relations, your reputation. An earnest, capable bhikkhu, or meditator, abandons, dispels, terminates, and obliterates them. So you deal with those. When this has been done, there remain thoughts connected with the Dhamma. There's still this subtle, thoughts connected with the Dhamma, that could even be experienced like, wow, I've never been here before, or wow, the Buddha was right, I just want to encourage everyone that there is this continuum, going from, and we're all somewhere on this, and we're all walking this path, and this continuum goes from more coarse to more and more refined. And this even happens with the defilements. They're coarse. When I started meditating, I was still doing, I hadn't even dealt with the morality part, and it just goes from more coarse to more and more refined, until eventually there's these beautiful experiences of the mind being settled, deeply, deeply content and collected. And then you just give the most subtle instruction to the mind, and it does exactly what it's told to do. The mind becomes very, very powerful. So I'll leave it there. I hope that's helpful, clear where I'm coming from. And if anyone has any questions or comments or anything, there's some time for that.
I have a fun thing to add from my grammar book last night. I was studying Pali, and the grammar book was saying that if you add gata to the end of a word, then it has an idiomatic expression of having reached. So ekagata means having reached oneness. So it absolutely doesn't mean that first description that you gave, what one-pointedness. Yeah, because it's an idiomatic expression of having reached. So absolutely no diversity, just totally oneness. Yeah. So that was kind of fun.
Thanks, Laurent. Bye. Enjoy the dogs. May the dogs enjoy you.
It's a really snowing day here in Calgary. Lots of snow. We'll see how much of a enjoyment it's going to be. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, Laurent.
I just so appreciated this talk. It's good. It's really good. And so much clear information in there. Even things that were just helping me to, once again, relax around the experience. The idea of allowing the meditation object to fill perception is just so key. And it was so missing from the early parts of my instruction in meditation. Always this idea of bang, bang,
Yeah,
bang,
yeah.
keep applying the mind in this rather mechanical
Mhm.
way. I never will forget saying to Ajahn Sona at one point, you made me love the breath instead of seeing it as a bellows, just this in and out, mechanical. You don't fall in love with mechanical. So anyway, another analogy that comes, I think, from the Visuddhimagga for Vitakka and Vichara is the bee and the flower.
Mhm.
And suddenly, as you were speaking, it just became much more real to me what that could be about. And once again, shifting it from the mechanical to the three-dimensional immersional experience and the attention. Like that simile is nice in that, unlike, say, the gong, which it works,
Mhm.
and even the flapping, it works when you understand it in the way that you were expressing it. That simile captures the idea of attention, and it's
Can you tell the
yeah.
bee and the flower simile?
yeah. So the Vitakka would be like the bee circling the flower,
Mhm.
and it's drawn to it, and it's interested in it as a food source too, right? So there's a very natural
Nourishing.
nourishment, but it draws the attention. This is what's beautiful about that simile. It's like I can't help myself. I'm mesmerized by this very attractive thing that I have a relationship with. And then so that's Vitakka, and then Vichara is when the bee lands on the flower. And we've watched bees in nature, they often land and they seem to hesitate and pull off again, so this is a nice description of how the mind has to gentle
Mhm,
itself
mhm.
into unification with the object, so that the Vichara eventually becomes longer and longer,
Mhm.
and then the bee really stays
Mhm.
immersed in that flower. And which brings me back to my naturalist days, and we used to describe flowers in the Alpine as parabolic dishes, and in the Alpine especially, that concentration of the sun's rays in a cold environment turns it into a little hot tub bath that the insects are very drawn to, and they get in there, and it's just like you're rolling around in this lovely warm environment.
Super great.
Yeah, so anyway, it's just your talk made that all that come together in this mind, at least, pretty nicely.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so great. I had bee and flower written down. I was like, I don't really get this one, so I can't talk about it. But of course you do. I mean, I go on hikes with Polly Paul, and she said that, that was her job, teaching about nature, and just, I've never paid as much attention to bees and flowers as I have since meeting you. Oh, that's so great. Yeah. Really, really great.
A question, Polly Paula.
Yeah.
How do you stay warm with?
Well, currently I'm sweating, so that would help. It's just old age. I'm menopausal. So.
Oh, sorry. It's just quite all right. Just look at you. Oh my gosh, I'm freezing over.
We're all bundled in our
Different
blankets.
Yeah.
It's a good question, Patricia. I wanted to ask you for a long time. Yeah. Okay. We'll end with
Passion.
compassion. Excellent. Yeah. Brahma Vihara compassion.
If you can bring to mind someone you know with great physical or mental suffering, and while being aware of their particular difficulties, direct these compassionate phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. And now send the phrases to yourself. May I be free of my pain and sorrow. May I find peace. Now bring to mind someone who has been very supportive of you and direct the phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. Now bring to mind a neutral person, someone you don't have strong feelings of love or hate towards, and send the phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. Now think of someone that you have a difficult relationship with and send the phrases to them. May you too be free of your pain and sorrow. May you too find peace. May all beings be free of pain and sorrow. May all beings find peace. Remember that all beings face great potential suffering, no matter how fortunate their immediate circumstances may be. This meditation does not eliminate suffering. What we are doing is being able to acknowledge suffering, to open to it and respond to it with a tenderness of heart, which allows us to join with all beings and realize we are never alone. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed.
Jill,
Ryan,
Aaron,
Sarah, Elise, Blair,
Malcolm,
Therese, Simon,
Jill,
Alex.
Teresa.
May all beings be well and happy. Thank you.
Super great to see you, Sarah. Very impressed.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, wonderful.
And we'll have a nice visit Sanghamita on Sunday.
Yes, we will.
Super wonderful. Great.
Oops.
And hopefully on Tuesday as well.
Yes, yes, that would be super.
Virginia, I'll send you an email. Yeah, it'd be great to connect. Great. Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.